Well, President Trump's immigration decision was atop the agenda during the White House press briefing, and Press Secretary Sarah Sanders put it firmly that it's time for Congress to do its job. Let's just watch for a second.
If there's no fix by Congress before March the 5th, do you know what will happen to those people? Will they become ineligible to remain in the military, or will there be special dispensation?
We have confidence that Congress is going to step up and do their job. This is something that needs to be fixed legislatively, and we have confidence that they're going to do that, and we stand ready and willing to work with them in order to accomplish responsible immigration reform.
Boy, it's been a theme today. Do your job, Congress. Let's talk about it with Simon Rosenberg, president and founder of the New Democrat Network and a former Clinton campaign advisor, and Vince Coglianese, editorial director for the Daily Caller. Gentlemen, always good to see you.
Good to be here.
Vince, I'm going to start with you. Sarah was very strong on that point today. She said it several times. Congress needs to step up and do its job. The president has handed them yet something else to do. Can they get it done?
Well, I think so, especially because now Democrats are going to be forced to come to the table, I think, because this has now become a litmus test for the Democratic Party. Just look at how we've spent the hours since we found out that this was even a possibility. Democrats everywhere have been pulling the fire alarm that the President of the United States is ending DACA. But understand that even leading up to this, we all were under the understanding that he was going to use this as leverage, ultimately to get a legislative version of DACA passed through Congress and some of the concessions that he wants for immigration, including components from the RAISE Act, like E-Verify or ending chain migration. If he can do all of those things, Democrats are going to have a tough time explaining to their constituents why they didn't vote to make DACA permanent when that law finally comes up for a vote in Congress.
Well, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions reminded us today, Simon, of the fact that this was never intended to be a long-term fix. The DACA program, he said that the Justice Department has looked at the legislation or the executive order that President Obama put through and says that, look, it conflicts with immigration law. It just doesn't work. So they would need to do something anyway.
Well, I just want to say, as many have said today, that I'm deeply disappointed in the decision. There are millions of people whose lives are going to be uprooted now. And I do think I'm not going to address the question that was raised. The decision's been made, right? We're moving on now. I don't agree.
Simon,
I don't agree with the legal rationale behind it.
I haven't been able to ask anyone in your party this today, and I'm really curious.
Sure.
If you knew that this wasn't a permanent solution, and you're letting children in illegally, and they're now growing up in America, the only country they've ever known, as Speaker Paul Ryan put it. If you knew this was the case, why didn't Democrats try to fix this before we got to this point? They knew it wasn't permanent.
Well, we did, actually. And
how did you do it? Why didn't it work?
In 2013, we passed a bill, a bipartisan bill, through the Senate that would have fixed this, and the House Republicans blocked it. So we actually did try to fix it. And an important point here is that DACA only applied to people who came here prior to 2007. And so there is this, people weren't continuing to come in and qualify for DACA. That's something that's been misrepresented in the press. Look, this is in some ways water under the bridge. The question is now, what does Congress and the president do together? I thought what was most interesting today was this notion that the White House was saying is that Congress has to legislate and we'll sit back here and watch. That's not how Washington works. The president needs to create, let me finish, to create some parameters on what Congress should do. Because if they go through 18 months or 6 months, whatever it is, a brutal debate around immigration, a bill gets through the House and the Senate and the president vetoes it, right? No one wants to go through that. The president's going to have to define the terms of the debate. He's not going to be able to get away with sort of what was in some ways an obnoxious and silly effort by Sarah Sanders.
What does happen if Congress can't fix this?
Well, if Congress can't fix it, then I think Democrats ultimately are going to have to answer why they couldn't come to the table to bring those votes. Whether or not Republicans split, I mean, that's kind of a foregone conclusion. Expect some Republicans to defect because they see this as an amnesty that shouldn't be voted for. But Democrats en masse are likely to vote for this so long as they're under pressure from their constituents to do so. And right now, President Obama has given President Trump massive leverage. Who would think that President Trump would be the one to be bringing comprehensive immigration reform of any kind to the table, and suddenly he's in the position to do it.
Well, and no doubt President Obama sees that, which is why he's now saying he's going to step in depending on how this goes. Look, I mentioned it earlier in the program. Democrat Senator Steny Hoyer says that he thinks this is the month to get something done on DACA. You do have some Democrats out there who are willing to work on this. Our own John Roberts, though, made how complicated this is very clear when he asked about those 359 DACA recipients who are serving in the U.S. Army. Congress has to do something. Simon, I'll give you a last quick word.
Yeah, no, I hope something gets done, and I think Democrats are going to insist on legalization and citizenship as part of the package, which, of course, would not be supported by most Republicans. It's not a question of whether it gets done. Now we got to get the devil's in the details. This is going to be a brutal debate, and I think it's going to look a lot like the previous immigration debates that we've had over the last decade or so.
Vince, Simon, thank you both.